evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. We kick things off with the federal election gearing up across the country, and in Labrador, two Inuit women are vying for that seat in the House of Commons. They're facing off against Conservative Shane Dumerusk. Yvonne Jones is the incumbent. She's held the riding for the Liberals since 2013. This riding is where the Innu Nation is suing both the federal and Newfoundland Liberal governments over the Muskrat Falls project after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced a $5.2 billion bailout for the hydroelectric dam. Looking to unseat Jones is fellow Inuk Amy Norman. She's running for the NDP. She ran in the last provincial election but lost. Norman was arrested for protesting against the Muskrat Falls project back in 2019, and she was banned from Parliament Hill for 90 days. Be an interesting riding to watch for sure. Our reporters are busy gathering profiles and people and issues that matter to you this election, so be sure to keep watching for those. And check out aptnnews.ca for more news from the campaign trail as well. Well, healthcare, reconciliation, climate change, those are some of the big ticket items that might come to mind this election. But a campaign is underway to make housing and homelessness a national issue. Votehousing.ca is the campaign's name. And to tell us more about what it's all about is Tim Richter joining us from Calgary. So I'll just start off. Tell us about the votehousing.ca campaign. Who started it? Why? What's the whole purpose of getting housing and homelessness on the political agenda this election?
Well, we started Vote Housing simply because it was, Canada's housing crisis and our homelessness crisis were created by policy. We know that when the federal government withdrew from housing investment and in the 80s and 90s, that began the crisis that we're seeing today. And of course, for Indigenous people in particular, it's also a product of, the echoes and legacy of residential schools, colonization, missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And these are all things that federal leadership is critical for us, and that's why we started Vote Housing. Something
I found interesting, a lot of people think, how much would it cost if we provide housing for everybody? And I thought it was interesting when you said, it's a problem that's far cheaper to solve than it is to keep going, how it is. Can you boil that down for us, how we understand the kind of the math behind that?
Well, we know that homelessness, just homelessness, not the housing need, but homelessness costs the Canadian economy over $7 billion every year to just ignore it. And those are costs for, policing and shelters and all the programs that get associated with it. It's actually far cheaper if we were to invest in the housing that's required, and it creates a permanent solution. It actually makes little or no sense to allow homelessness to continue, even if you set aside kind of the justice and moral reasons for solving the problem.
But I mean, if this makes economical sense, why are we even having the conversation? Why hasn't this been done?
I think in elections and in politics, governments will focus on the things where they can get the most votes. And so again, when we looked at housing need and homelessness in Canada, one of the things we realized is 36% of Canadians know somebody who's experienced homelessness or have experienced it themselves. That's a huge number of people. 1.5 million Canadians have experienced homelessness. 1.7 million households are in core housing need. And if these people were all able to get out and vote and sort of make this a political issue, then we'd get traction, and we're starting to see that in the campaign today.
You've said that homelessness has been ended in some areas, and the problem has been dramatically reduced in others. Can you tell us where these places are, what's worked, and how you could take that's worked at a local level and make it be a national program?
For sure. Well, Medicine Hat Alberta has ended chronic homelessness. London, Ontario has ended homelessness for veterans. The city of Edmonton, city of 1 million plus folks, has reduced overall homelessness 43% in the last several years. That proves that homelessness is a solvable problem. The key thing they've done is focus on ending it. But they were able to bring together the three levels of government, focus on housing, and do some other key measures that we know are effective. But the big thing, is what we really need federal leadership and that federal investment in housing. Provinces and cities just don't have that kind of money themselves.
Do you have a dollar figure that you're thinking would be helpful, or I guess even the bare minimum of a federal commitment to this?
Yeah, well, we think it's about $5 billion a year. would be the cost. And again, it depends on how you spend it, but a lot of it has to be focused on, providing rent supports, that deep subsidy, new affordable housing building, developing supportive housing, and importantly, an urban Indigenous housing strategy that is by Indigenous people and for Indigenous people.
I'm curious to know a little bit more about that strategy.
Yeah, well, one of the things I think we recognize is that 87% or so of Indigenous folks live in urban centers in rural communities, or basically not on First Nations or Métis settlements. And so when they don't live there, they don't always get the benefit of the housing investment that goes directly through First Nation, Métis, and Inuit national organizations. So there has to be some funding dedicated for those people that are living in the cities, rural or remote or northern areas that can't access that housing on their home nation or territory. So that's a critical priority, because we see Indigenous people dramatically overrepresented in homelessness. Place like Winnipeg, 70% of the homeless population is Indigenous. Edmonton is also significantly high, upwards of about 50%.
You are putting this to the parties during this election. Tell us about the votehousing.ca. You guys are doing a debate. Tell us when and where people can follow that.
Yeah, we're planning a housing debate at some point next week. We're just confirming all the leaders, confirming all of the participants, hoping that it'll be just before the leaders debate, but we're just going to nail that down. We'll be releasing our platform in some detail today or early tomorrow. If folks are interested, go to votehousing.ca and see the details of what we're calling on all the parties to do.
Love it. And we will watch that website too for nailed down time and date for that debate among the parties about homelessness and housing. Thank you so much, Tim, for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you.
Manitoba Kiwetinawi Ogamakinag is the organization that represents Northern Manitoba Chiefs. It has sent its missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls liaison unit to Northern Manitoba First Nation in the wake of a brutal assault that happened there earlier this month. Police say 14 people face charges of forcible confinement, assault, and aggravated sexual assault after a 34-year-old woman ran screaming from a home on Norway House First Nation back on August 11th. RCMP on the scene said she was suffering from serious injuries sustained while being held against her will and brutalized. Men and women are among the 14 people facing charges, ranging in age from 17 to 52. Most are from Norway House. MKO Grand Chief Garrison Settee said, quote, "I am deeply disturbed by the horrific violence experienced by the victim. It is shocking to learn how many individuals are alleged to be involved in this serious assault." He dispatched a support unit that is usually reserved for families impacted by missing or murdered Indigenous women and girls to assist the victim and the community as it grapples with a crime like this. Leaders say it reiterates the need for the national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. 231 calls for justice to be implemented. Well, we want to hear what you think. What can be done to stop lateral violence in our communities? What's working elsewhere? Share your solutions that you've seen. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also, of course, find us on social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Dr. Alika Lafontaine is the new president-elect of the Canadian Medical Association, the first Indigenous doctor in their 154-year history. Our CTV affiliate reporter Avis Favreau has that story.
The road has been a challenging one for Dr. Alika Lafontaine, an anesthesiologist in Alberta and now the first Indigenous president-elect of the Canadian Medical Association.
I'm really excited over the next few years about the opportunity that I'll have to create that space in the places that I'm at in the same way that people in my own life created space for me.
As a child, he says he was written off by teachers. He had a stutter and was labeled developmentally delayed.
They actually told my parents I'd never graduate high school. I remember sitting in the car after and my mom hugging me, and she did this several times over the next few weeks, and she just kind of hold me and just whisper to me and whisper to her, you know, you're not broken, you're not broken.
His parents' unconditional support shaped his life.
That is what we had done over that period of time is to assure Alika that he's going to be fine, that we as parents will find a solution.
We knew he was bright. There was something inside him, and we just knew that there was something we had to bring out of him.
So his mother homeschooled him. And playing in the family band gave him confidence. Fueled by an urge to help others, he became a doctor, hearing troubling stories about mistreatment of Indigenous patients in the health system. He helped co-found an app called Safe Space, where patients can now anonymously report racism in their medical care.
He is so passionate about people, so passionate about improving health outcomes for all. And he backs up that passion with not only words, but with actions.
Dr. LaFontaine knows that his voice matters even more as he takes the helm of the CMA.
Because I've been disempowered in my life, I know how to create space. I understand how to amplify other folks who want to share their experiences but maybe don't know how.
As he prepares for a new challenge, advocating for doctors and Canadian healthcare in the midst of a pandemic. Avis Favreau, CTV News, Toronto.
We will have a full interview with Dr. LaFontaine tomorrow on the show. Well, two nonprofit organizations are taking the Alberta government to court over recent changes to a supervised consumption site's regulations. Moms Stop the Harm and Lethbridge Overdose Prevention Society, which includes members of the Blood Tribe, have filed a statement of claim last week. The new rules by the province include clients having to provide personal health numbers to service providers. Kim Porter with Moms Stop the Harm says that these new requirements will send users away, which increases the risk of an overdose.
This is about saving lives, and their restrictions are doing the opposite of that. We keep saying the same messages, and they don't seem to be being heard.
New details from a U.S. government watchdog report found multiple problems with the Keystone XL pipeline that was supposed to carry Alberta oil sands crude to Nebraska. The report was prepared by the Government Accountability Office in November 2019. It found Keystone's 4 largest spills were caused by issues related to the original design, manufacturing of the pipe, or its construction. President Joe Biden canceled the permit for the Keystone XL pipeline on his first day in office. We're going to have to take a break, but still ahead a significant COVID-19 outbreak in the Northwest Territories. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Northwest Territories are in the midst of a very large COVID-19 outbreak. They're expected to update the case numbers later today. The last toll was released Friday with 198 active cases of COVID in the territory, the majority of which are in the Sahtu region. The territorial government is getting help from the Red Cross and the Canadian Rangers. The Sahtu region has one of the lowest vaccination rates in the territory. 68% of eligible people there have received both doses. Well, new COVID-19 cases in Ontario topped 700 this weekend for the first time since early June. The province reported 722 new infections and 2 more deaths this Sunday. 564 of those cases were in individuals who were not fully vaccinated or have an unknown vaccination status. Meanwhile, the City of Toronto now reports that 75% of those over age 12 are now fully vaccinated. Next door in Quebec, the COVID case count dropped below 500 on Sunday, and there were no new deaths. The province added 463 new cases, 68% of whom were not vaccinated or had only had 1 dose. 98 people were admitted to hospital, which is the most Quebec has seen in a single day since early July. The average for the last 7 days is 451 cases, which remains higher than the daily increases since the beginning of the month. Out west now, British Columbia is adding more COVID-19 restrictions today for the interior health region, where cases have been surging. As of 8 a.m. Pacific time this morning, Limits will be in place on gatherings and vacation rentals where only 5 guests or 1 additional household will be allowed. Indoor personal gatherings at other locations will be limited to 10 guests or 1 other household. The province will provide an update on vaccinations later today. Some BC industry groups have formally asked the province to implement a vaccine passport. Well, and some big news south of the border. The Food and Drug Administration has fully approved Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine. Health officials believe the full approval will help vaccine uptake as COVID-19 infections and hospitalizations surge across the country. U.S. President Joe Biden says that the FDA's approval is an important moment in the fight against COVID-19. Biden says that it reaffirms that the vaccine is safe and effective and should give some additional confidence to get the shot.
If you're one of the millions of Americans who said that they will not get the shot until it has full and final approval of the FDA, it has now happened. The moment you've been waiting for is here. It's time for you to go get your vaccination and get it today.
Biden says the Delta variant is dangerous and it's spreading, and vaccines are the best way to prevent getting seriously ill. It's time for us to take another break, but still ahead, bowhead whale hunters are back. We're going to take you there. Stay with us. Before the break, we told you about pressure on the BC government to implement a vaccine passport. Well, that in fact did happen today. Well, moving on, it's time now for our photo of the day. Janice Gladish sent us this from outside of the Mista Cultural Centre in Alert Bay, BC. Thanks to you, Janice, and all of you keep sending us some amazing shots. We enjoy them all. Keep those beauties coming. You can email them to share@aptn.ca along with a location and a descriptor, and you could be our next photo of the day. Let's take a look now at the weather. Off to the east coast, we got 27 in showers for Fredericton, 29 in showers for Charlottetown. Cartwright, 19 in showers. Kuujjuaq, mix of sun and cloud, and 17 degrees. Saguenay, 26 in showers. 31 in sunshine for Montreal. 31 for Toronto and London. Sunny skies there. 24 and sunny for Sioux Lookout. 15 for Big Trout Lake with some cloud. Sunshine, and 17 for Puckatawaga, 16 and sunny in Churchill. Barons River, 15 with a chance of showers. 20 and rain for Brandon. 16 for Swift Current and Regina, showers there. Same with Saskatoon. 17 for Buffalo Narrows, Meadow Lake and La Ronge, cloudy with a chance of showers. You got some smoke for Grand Prairie, 20 degrees there. Sunny in Fort Mac and 20 degrees. Smoke in Edmonton, 19. Sunny skies though for Lethbridge, 17. Lots of sun in southern BC. 24 in Bella Coola and Kamloops, 25 in Penticton. 22 and sunny in Fort Nelson and Smithers, 17 for Prince Rupert. 18 and showers for Beaver Creek, 17 and showers for Whitehorse. Wrigley, rain and 23 into sunshine for Norman Wells, 22. Tuktoyaktuk, rain and 11. Sax Harbor, mostly sunny, 1 degree. 14 and sunny for Baker Lake. New Yacht, cloud, 7 degrees, maybe a chance of showers there too. Igloolik, chance of showers and 5. Same with Clyde River. Pengerton, showers and 8. Award-winning writer, journalist, and filmmaker Tanya Talaga is known for tackling hard subjects. APTN's Priscilla Wolf spoke to Talaga about her next project, which we told you a little bit about last week. 3 new books are in the works dealing with the legacy of residential schools. Here's more on that.
It's important. I really think it's important that we tell our stories. There aren't enough of us doing it, right? And not just at the director level, but also at the executive producer level.
Tanya Talaga is Anishinaabe and Polish. She says it's important Indigenous people tell their own stories. Like the documentary Spirit to Soar, which looked at racism in her hometown of Thunder Bay.
I executive produced Spirit to Soar, and that was really important because to me, we should be the ones in control of our stories at the highest level. And that's through being an executive producer. So you're actually the one making the business decisions on our stories.
Talaga's first book, 7 Fallen Feathers, was a national bestseller, and so was her second book, All My Relations. Recently, publisher HarperCollins asked her to write 3 books for them.
I was really humbled and honored to be asked to write 3 books. And I have to tell you that the first book only is on residential schools, and the other 2 books will be on something different.
Talaga says her connection to residential schools is that her mother was raised by survivors, her grandparents.
My mother was raised by residential school survivors, and that is where I come to this story, you know, because, and I've written about this before, and I speak about this too. I mean, we've all had the experiences of that, of the trauma that gets handed down from generation to generation.
Talaga's family was also affected by the 60s scoop.
My mother's experience and my mother's brother's experience. My mother's brothers were in the 60s scoop, and other members of my mother's family were also in the 60s scoop. And my sister was adopted out as well. I didn't even know I had a sister until I was in my early 20s.
Now, Talaga is getting ready to tackle her book on residential schools.
I am spiritually actually preparing on how I'm going to do this, mentally preparing how I'm going to do this. And I never write alone, really. 7 Fallen Feathers and All Our Relations, I was very cognizant of the fact that I am learning as I go, and I need to hear the voices from so many in our communities.
Priscilla Wolf, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
The Edmonton Fringe Festival celebrated 40 years as it wrapped up on Sunday. Organizers say that over 37,000 tickets were sold. There were several Indigenous performers throughout the 10-day festival, including Daryl Brereton Jr. He's from Saddle Lake Cree Nation in Alberta. The flute player and the dancer also shared some Indigenous history and culture with those in attendance. He says that in light of the discovery of residential school graves, this is a chance for the city to show some reconciliation.
This is one of the ways the city of Edmonton can contribute, recognize, bring awareness to the subject by bringing Indigenous people so they can share their stories and what we were taught. Because a lot of the performers, they either grew up on the res, or they're from the res, or they lived there before. They understand it, they know it, and they're not just talking the talk, they're walking the talk.
Every year, Nunavut residents harvest 3 bowhead whales, 1 for each region in the territory, and the hunts rotate between communities. Well, this year was Baker Lake's turn, and we were happy to bring home some whale. The bowhead hunters returned to Baker Lake on Saturday and were greeted by this scene on the beach. A full-on fireworks show and one of the biggest parades that anyone in Baker Lake can recall. A bowhead whale is bigger than a school bus, and the catch will be shared with Baker Lake's neighboring communities. I guess we saved the best news for last in this newscast. Well, it's great to see the community come together and celebrate a successful hunt. Well, that is a wrap for your Monday news. Thanks, of course, for joining us. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Dennis Ward will be back here tomorrow. Till then, take care.